Whereas the rest of you got here in time, many of you had time to even have a drink, but please come forward and have a seat. I'm Mariah Brown. I'm Jim's wife, for those of you who I have not met or who don't recognize me after 40 years. So now you know who I am. Thank you so much for all being here today, for reaching out to us, for loving us, for joining us to remember Jimmy, or Jim, as some of you knew him. We gathered to say goodbye, but also to appreciate all of those aspects of him that remain with us and will inspire us. Our sons, Jackson and Alex, have said that they want today to be focused on how he lived, who he was, not how he died. So I hope we can follow the advice of Jim Valvano. Okay, where are the state fans? I actually said his name. Where are the state? I know there are a few state fans here. Okay, so Jimmy V sort of reminded us that there are 3 things that you need to do for a good day. Anybody remember what those 3 things are?
Yeah, you laugh.
Laugh.
Right. Think. And cry.
Laugh, think, and cry. Oh, good. Okay, you're right. And I agree. There's a place for all of those. And every fall, when the Jimmy V campaign would be underway in basketball season, we enjoyed, my Jimmy and I would enjoy remembering, to think and laugh and cry. Makes it a good day. So that's part of the wisdom that we hope to bring and use today as well. And speaking of basketball, it really is unbelievable that Jimmy's not here for the UVA winning streak. Sorry, Duke fans. Thank you, Mary, but let's hope it continues. I'm not going to be able to talk about the countless ways that I loved him and I miss him. That's all still way too tender to talk about. So relax. We won't go there. But I will share one story that I think represents his subtle humor, which was one of my favorite characteristics. As a lot of you know, Jimmy walked softly on this earth, but he did leave an imprint on a lot of people. And in addition to having about a 20-year career as a child and family therapist, he also spent a lot of time coaching in sports. And there was one memorable time at the end of the T-ball season when he had coached this team that we had a party on our deck. And Jimmy was surrounded by this group of sort of wrapped 6-year-olds, all wearing their red jerseys and their oversized hats that were all kind of lopsided. And he was going to give a little speech before he handed out the ubiquitous trophies that we gave kids. And what Jimmy said to them is, "You are all legends in your own minds." And the kids were like, yeah, even if they didn't know what a legend was. They were with him. He was that good at talking with kids. And of course, some of the parents were just like, turning away, snickering, whereas there were a few of the parents who were like, yeah, that's my kid. That's my kid. But that was his humor. So for some of you, I know he left perhaps a deeper imprint. For those of you who have said he was your best friend, or for a couple of women who have said he was your best guy friend, y'all gonna have to duke that out between you because there's several of you who said best guy friend. Others who have said a surrogate father, and others who have just said he helped you be a better person. And certainly I fall in that category. So who made him a good person? I want to acknowledge his father, who we are really sorry to not be here with us today. He's just feeling pretty vulnerable and fragile right now and could not be here. But we'll also acknowledge his sister Kathy, who is here, and point out his lovely mother Mary, who a few of you met, who is deceased. But these are the people who made him who he was, and through unconditional love let him be who he was meant to be. With all of his talents, all of his interests, all of his various phases, he was always in and out of different phases, and all of his quirks. They supported him, they loved him first, they loved him last. I also want to acknowledge my sons, Jackson, Alex. They were certainly our greatest accomplishment as a couple. And they're two incredible young men. They've been very brave, resilient, really soulful, and just very perceptive. So they have their own memories to share today, and in the end, the memories are all we have. And I'm just so thankful that we have so many really, really good ones. And many of them made with people in this room, some of which we can talk about and some which we really shouldn't talk about. But I think Peggy might talk about it. So we want to highlight today some of those things that we love about Jimmy through our words, through some music, and also through some pictures that you'll see in the back room. So on behalf of the entire family, thank you for being here, and we'll turn it over to Jackson.
Yeah, I'm wishing I took that public speaking course in college. That's for sure. Every time that I thought about the words I would use today, I asked myself how my father would do it. And I remember the eulogy that he gave at his mother's funeral and how he was able to convey both weakness and strength, grief and joy, and to me, most importantly, humor. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do. So circa 1998, I'm laying on my back, struggling to breathe at the Gordon Elementary football field, asking myself when this touch football game turned into a WWF match. Michael Gene Castro, right there, second row, had just successfully kept me from picking up a first down by clotheslining me. It was a great play. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to him. It was a great play. I didn't pick it up, but I mean, come on, we agreed on touch football, you know? On the next play, my father decided to pick Michael up and body slam him into the ground. Now, I want you all to picture this. This is a full-grown 50-year-old man completely wrecking a 12-year-old. It was hilarious. I did eventually find out that he did it in a way that Michael was unhurt, merely shocked, and a lesson was definitely learned that day. And that was my father being both a teacher and a protector. Luckily, he didn't have to do that often, and by that I mean be a protector. He would continuously body slam people throughout his life for reasons we don't know why. It's just something he enjoyed to do. He was a simple man. He enjoyed a good cigar. He enjoyed to eat. Not in the way that most people enjoy to eat, where they enjoy eating good food. I mean, the man just simply loved the act of eating. On multiple occasions, I would come downstairs, and he would be passed out with a completely melted tub of ice cream on his belly. And I would just laugh, clean it up, and then make sure I harassed him about it the next day. And I'm not talking like 1 or 2 times. Everyone in this front row has probably seen him do that multiple times. He loved going on bike rides. He would often ride to my soccer games growing up, including trips to Charlottesville and Williamsburg and Virginia Beach, so long ways. And another thing to imagine is my father standing on the sidelines, surrounded by parents wearing, normal clothes, and he would be in the most unflattering, skin-tight bike shorts and shirt. Most notably, this bright orange uniform that had a giant Chinese takeout food container on the front and a giant fortune cookie on the back. It was outstanding to see. Yeah, exactly. But that was a big thing that made him who he was. He liked what made him happy. He believed in what he thought was right, and he wore what he was comfortable in. He was the least insecure person I've ever met, and I always respected and admired him for that. And it's something that even growing up came naturally to him. While his passing will forever be associated with depression and torment, the vast majority of his life was filled with bliss. He was able to achieve success professionally between degrees from UVA, VCU, and Virginia Tech. There have never been 2 sons more confused about who to root for. We did figure out, and I'll say it for my brother, go Hokies, we figured it out for ourselves. He was able to accomplish a lot professionally under numerous titles, none more important to me than his ascension to becoming chief of the entire Pamunkey Nation. This is a long story that I'll be happy to tell later, but in short, it was something that he volunteered to do because of how much he enjoyed being a father and how comfortable he was talking with both parents and kids alike. His greatest accomplishments, as my mother touched on, came in his social and personal life. He was an amazing son, brother, and uncle. He was somehow able to raise two very well-rounded sons, if I do say so myself. He landed the best wife that any man could hope to have. And he had numerous best friends, and this is something I also want to touch on. It came to light that many people considered him to be their best friend in one form or another. And this was surprising to us because, as my mom said, he tread lightly on this earth. He didn't really actively pursue friendships, not because he didn't want them or care, but because he didn't need to. He, like my brother, had one of those rare personalities that made people gravitate towards him. And he was able to make such an instant and lasting impression on people because of how accessible, rational, and warm that he can be. It's a quality that few have, and I've always revered them both for it. He understood depression better than most. 2 years ago, when I was struggling and unable to truthfully talk to anybody, he got me to open up more than I ever have. Every 3 weeks or so, he would ask me to go out on these dinners, and I never looked forward to them because I knew what was coming. He wouldn't pressure or pry, but he would put me in these situations where I knew it was time to talk. And it was these talks that played the most significant part in climbing out that hole that I found myself in. And it is my single greatest regret that I didn't get to thank him for that. And more so, that I didn't get to return the favor. And this is another big part of who he was. Always, always looking to help other people rather than seek out aid for himself. And it allowed him to comfort and improve the lives of many people, many of my friends, many of his coworkers, just a lot of people. That was the hard part. So luckily for me, there are very few regrets I have about my father. He was able to teach me a lot, everything from how to defend as a second defender, which I know he got out of one of his coaching for soccer, or coaching for soccer for dummies books, because that man did not know soccer at all. To how to restore old wooden furniture. There were talks, ski trips, boat voyages, and so much more. In short, a time that my family and his friends spent with him could not have been better. And I'm luckier than many in the fact that I was able to have almost 26 years with a father that unconditionally loved me and our entire family. He was able to do more for us than we could have repaid in 3 lifetimes. And if I can become half the man that he was, I'll be satisfied. I'll be good to go. Every single person in this room helped make the biggest part of his 64 years amazing. Whether it was directly or indirectly, I truly want to thank you. My heart is full today from all the love felt in this room. I can't believe how many people are here. I could talk for hours about him, so if you ever want to know more, just ask. And after all of that, I can, with 100% confidence, say that I am ready for another drink. So cheers to all of you. Thank you for coming. I love you.
Having first met him when our bigs merged in 2008. His thoughtful and quiet expression and of course his height were intimidating at first, but it wasn't long before I caught a glimpse of the real Jim when he consoled me on the loss of my daughter. Dang it. I thought it was going to get further than this, I'm sorry.
You got it.
Got it. Man. Not a man of many words. He merely stopped me, put his hand on his heart, and gave me a tearful hug. That was one of the many moments that Jim stepped into the role of counselor and friend. Where others saw a quirky and rather stereotypically introverted computer guy, I came to know him as a gentle, caring father figure. We had numerous conversations, let's do it again, regarding my son's experience with extreme bullying, many of which ended in tearful thanks for his advice and kind words. When the situation worsened, I walked into his office, slid a resignation letter across his desk. He didn't even read it. He merely slid it back to me, said no, and helped me develop a schedule that benefited my family and the baby. I will never forget the look of joy and relief on my son's face. Third time, Jim was an instant hero in our household. In May, I spent 2 days building the courage to tell Jim once again that I was resigning, so I could, among other things, focus on being a full-time mom. I pushed another letter across his desk, and instead of pushing it back this time, he merely got up, shut his door, and quietly sat back down. I nearly took the letter back. I was so worried that I'd disappointed him or let him down after all I'd done for our family. Instead, his response was, "I'm just so damn proud of you, and I am so happy for your family." That's the kind of person that Jim is. So when he called me the Monday after my last day on that job to tell me that he'd worked out a job for me from home, I was thrilled to accept it. I feel a very heavy and grateful heart when I think back on all the ways that Jim made ours a better life. But I will always fondly look back on my time working with and learning from Jim. And this is going to be another bash on his clothes, so I apologize. He really had some clothes issues. Poor guy. I smile thinking back on this. I truly do. It's one of my favorite things about Jim. I think back on his unbuttoned shirt sleeves, his loose tie, his crazy bedhead, his untied shoelaces. I would always run into the wall when he turned a corner through the office. And that he would often leave his security badge and his wallet in his back pocket and just stand at the door, butt scanning up and down until it finally beeped, and he thought it was hilarious. He built a close, cohesive team, and I know we're all very grateful for that. His instructions to us were often dotted with long pauses where most of the conversation was happening in his head. And he'd purse his lips and look down his glasses, and we all just kind of knew what he was talking about, and we did it. And though extremely professional, Jim had many moments where his true personality came through, like in the several days worth of email correspondence that we shared as Batman and Robin to the ticketing system. It was awesome. His straightforward and sometimes sassy commentary was always sharp, on point, and appreciated. In his 11 years of service as the director of IT at Essex Bank and its many incarnations, Jim oversaw the IT portion of several complicated mergers and acquisitions. He was a thoughtful, caring supervisor and a dedicated, respected key member of our management team. He was determined to and took great pride in staying under budget no matter the project. He executed a disaster recovery plan that helped our bank provide near seamless customer service when Hurricane Sandy brought down our core processor and handicapped our operations, a success that truly set us apart from our peers and was highly praised in numerous audits that followed. Jim painstakingly devised and executed the most incredibly intricate plan that moved our backup data facility and our main server room from one physical location to another, a process that took well over a year of constant development and review and several days of hard physical labor to complete. And then, despite the process being susceptible to a million different external and human errors, it was absolutely flawless. There's just a small sample of Jim's accomplishments at the bank, and I imagine there are countless instances more where he saved the day and never said a word. It's because of these countless contributions and his genuine nature that Jim was, is, and always will be held in very, very high regard. It is in the spirit of being so very grateful for Jim that Essex Bank proudly dedicates the new server room he so tirelessly built to his memory. And here we go to number 4. This plaque will serve as a reminder of our dear friend and colleague, an opportunity to be more thankful, and maybe even an excuse to stop for a moment and smile. I know I can speak on behalf of Michael, Webb, and Wilbur, and Justin, and the rest of our Essex Bank team when I say that this dedication is an honor for us. And that having a piece of Jim with us every day will be a tremendous consolation. I hope that these memories are some comfort and that you do laugh some more. He was truly a wonderful person, a very kind soul. I'm going to miss him the rest.
My name is Peggy Daly. I have a poem for Jimmy that I wrote, and when I wrote it, I had no idea that I was going to be looking at a room full of people so large as this. I don't know why. I had no idea. I should have surmised that he would be loved by so many. However, the poem that I've written is written for Jimmy, and it's written for Mariah, and a little bit for my husband, Owen. Owen and I went on vacations with Jimmy and Mariah. I've known him since I was in college. I grew up with him. And yes, I'm one of the ones that loved him. He was my very best guide. Anyway, this is a poem for Jimmy. Jimmy, when I met you, I was just a child, still naive and slightly wild. And to me, you always seemed so wise, with that gentle voice and those understanding eyes. You listened so well and spoke so much less, but when you did, God bless, I hung on every word of my new friend, James Bird. So today, Jimmy, I just want to say cheers for all the great memories over the years. Jimmy, I remember you liked to dance. With at least 2 chicks, you'd prance. You were even known to make the scene with that ugly wild wallflower cigarette machine. I remember playing Scrabble at the Delaware beach, my mother-in-law's books just within reach. And so you went in there to find some Scrabble words to share. From a book of the month, you found Dick like a mule, but that was more than the 7-letter rule. So instead, you played dirge, and the two would converge, introducing dirge mule dick, my dear. But dirge, there won't be any dirge today, because of course you wouldn't have wanted it that way. Instead, let's remember all those funny potatoes in that great warm basket of rolls, all those wonderful meals and those special trips, and especially those Mardi Gras clothes. I'll never forget when you emerged from the sea, much to the St. Bart tourist glee, with a wig and a wetsuit and a big broad smile. To understand this, it took them a while. Holding hands with Big Smurf and his coconut bra, you surely made this Mardi Gras. We also logged many memorable miles boating and hiking in the British Virgin Isles. With rooftop music on a sugar mill, we felt the warm nights on our lovely Gorda Hill. Frisbee on the beach, diving through the waves, water skiing in the mud, these were some of your faves. Jimmy, I loved you like a brother. You were a friend unlike any other. I'll remember you most with your eyebrows raised and that wonderful hearty laugh. So today, with that memory, I'll close this poem and say from my heart at last, thank you for so many of my best memories, Jimmy. I will miss you forever.
I did not write a poem. Thank you, that was fabulous. Jimmy was my friend, my hero, our son's godfather. And he came to our son's graduation. He was our Elmo football quarterback. He led us to a championship in cut-off jeans and hiking boots. I'll treasure my last night with Jimmy on board Water Lily in Deltaville. We sat there for hours and talked about our father. I knew Jimmy for 45 years. They were all wonderful. And I'll miss our big boy hugs.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Wiley. First of all, beyond my prepared notes, I want to thank Mariah and Jackson and Alex for allowing me to speak, especially after seeing so many people here. I'm really kind of overwhelmed. I think I'm here as a counterpoint to the three people who have gone before me. First of all, I had originally brought a poem by Emily Dickinson, which I had no intention of reading. Second, I remember when the Jim Horner that you knew, who was the head of IT in the beginning stages of our bank, when it meant IT was nothing but Jim Horner and Kathleen Mopika, who's with us today. Jim was there because he had the records for all the fundraising that we had done to open the bank. People want to know, how did Jim get into IT? How did he get into the computer business? He had the money. Thirdly, Jackson, I had expunged all those images of Jim in his tights. I rode many hours following those tights. And you have brought that back. I first met Jim when we were introduced by a mutual friend, and the first description that I had of Jim, or I was given of Jim, was that of his beautiful wife. And I remember being stunned, standing in your living room with Edmund and Jimmy to head to North Carolina, and whoosh, this sort of vision, this beautiful vision at about 8 o'clock in the morning went past us, and I knew right away that I had been given the correct information about the value of Jim Horner. My two quick snapshots. People have talked about Jim and being quiet and reserved. And recently someone else who knew Jim through myself and my wife referred to Jim as being shy. And I never really thought of it that way, and I came to realize that that person was absolutely accurate. Shy as an observer. I will never forget a party at our house. Lots of people, some of them were in this room, having a great time. And Jim and I standing very silently and just looking at the party. And Jim turned to me and said, "It must be fun to be Jim," my wife. And I realized as I've been thinking about these things that that was very Jim Horner. He had been on the side, he had been observing things, and he observed something both humorous, warm, and kind all at the same time. And I think that says a lot about Jim Horner. In addition to the fact that he had the records for all the money. So finally, I rode a lot with Jim. And I finally stopped riding as much with Jim. As we rode more, Jim was always in front of me. He was always a better athlete. He was always a little faster. Didn't help that he was about 8 years younger. That helped as well. He was always in front. But he always found, in addition to being the slower of the two, I had a clunky old bike. And finally, after a few years, Jim got a new, more streamlined road bike, which meant he was even further out. Except that he never was. Sometimes and somehow, I was always catching up with Jim. And so, over a period of time, I stopped doing as much riding because I felt like I was holding Jim back. I felt like the exercise was not as much fun for Jim. And now I'm sorry, because now I realize that it was fun to be with Jim. And I should have let Jim do what he was doing, which is to warmly and casually and kindly always wait, and in many cases return to pick me up. In lieu of the poem, I remember that a few years ago I sent you a quotation on the death of your father. And the quotation referred to someone in his passing as being a lonely immigrant who has come and passed along, taking with him the hearts of all the people. So that's my memory. Thank you.
Mike and I and our family would like to share some of our thoughts regarding Jim and our friendship with Jim, Mariah, and the Horner family. As everyone here is aware, Jim was one of the kindest, most gentle, brightest, and funniest people around. It was a true privilege to be in Jim's friend world. The world is less fun, less warm, and less interesting without Jim. Jim and my husband Mike spent many hours on our screen porch and on their deck, laughing and noting the multiple ironies of life and solving the world's problems. Our deck planters are loaded with cigar tubes in multiple colors, placed there following a smoke that Mike and Jim had over the years. And when I see those now, I simultaneously smile and feel the onslaught of tears as they remind me of Jim and some of his quirky behaviors and clothing. We enjoyed endless, incredibly fun times with Jim and Mariah in Richmond, in Sunset Beach, and at Hatteras. We've slept on Water Lily, and we had been eagerly anticipating this sort of next stage of life when we would all enjoy many more couples trips during the next many years. We have more memories than can possibly be recounted, but suffice it to say that we are better people, and we've had deeper experiences and lives in part of a relationship with our relationship with Mariah and Jim and their family. Watching Alex and Jackson grow up has been an integral part of our friendship. It has been a pleasure and a joy to watch each of these delightful young men transition from the adventurous and busy children we once knew to the fine, mature, and still adventurous young men they now are. Jackson and Alex, your dad was so proud of you both, so proud of you. With Jim, both Mike and I always felt comfortable discussing virtually any topic. Jim was such a wonderful listener. In some of our family's darkest and most challenging moments, Jim and Mariah were among the key people we called on for support, and they never disappointed us with their tender care and compassion. Not only was Jim a dear and deeply loved friend, he was an excellent role model and mentor to both of our sons, Michael and David, who initially connected with Jim during Indian Guides. Alex and Jackson, your decision to honor your dad's life and memory with donations to Indian Guides and the National Alliance on Mental Illness is lovely. And we truly believe that both of those causes are superb representations of what your dad would likely have chosen himself. Based on my clinical knowledge as a therapist, as well as our family experiences, please allow me to share a few additional thoughts. The demons of depression sometimes make it seem that in a given moment or a series of moments, leaving this world may be the best and only option. A brain disorder, including depression, is a medical disease and significantly impacts a person's thought processes. I suppose that none of us will ever really understand Jim's death. As for Mike and me, we desperately wish we could have in some way known the depth of Jim's pain and that we had intervened in time to prevent the tragic loss of our beloved friend. Hurst, Kathy, Mariah, Alex, and Jackson, we are here for you and we love all of you. With Jim's loss, our world has changed. Jim's absence from our lives is heartbreaking. We plan to honor Jim by telling everyone close to us how much we love them and how much they mean to us on a more regular basis. Let's all take good care of one another and check in regularly with those we love. Jackson and Alex, this last part is for you. As you reflect on your dad's life and legacy, I hope that you will envision the people in this room and the positive, meaningful impact that your dad had on each and every person here. Thank
This is not going to be easy, and I'll tell you why.
About an hour and a half ago, Jackson asked me to see what I wrote for Dad, what I was going to say today. And he read it to you all. I'm just kidding, I have my own thoughts. Making funny jokes so everyone laughs and you don't get too nervous. Okay. That part. But seriously, that was amazing. And all the speeches have been amazing, and the performances. If we could just give them all a round of applause. I'd like to thank everybody in the room, especially those that can't be with us, for the phone calls, the text, the emails, the thoughts and the prayers, the visits, the 15 casseroles. Those were awesome. Thank you. I'd like to thank my girlfriend Amanda of 6.5 years for not only doing the RSVPs and the programs, but all the intangibles that she's given my mom and my brother and I. I do not know how I would get through this without you. I also want to thank all of you for the way you helped to shape and mold my dad into the guy that he was. Without each and every one of you, he wouldn't be who he was. I sure as shit wouldn't be who I am today. My mom wouldn't be as strong and as courageous as she is. My brother wouldn't be as impressive and as admirable as he is without each and every one of you. So thank you. Last, I wanted to thank Papa, my father's father. And I've told him this in person, and he's not here, so I'll tell you guys. But I wanted to thank him for creating, for raising, and for caring for the guy that I call my hero, just like Big O. I know my hero was loved and cared for by so many people in this room, and I want to tell you on his behalf that he loved you too. He respected you. He appreciated you. He really, really did. So let's not forget about the memories and everything that he taught us, because that's going to be the legacy that he leaves, the legacy that I'm honored to carry on with Jackson. And although we're pretty smart guys, we don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. And just like you, we're stuck in a world with a million unknowns. So for right now, I'll just try to stick to what I do know. I do know that summing up my dad's life, I always come back to one really simple concept, and it's never that we meet a man who more faithfully lived his values. My father was a teacher of all things, and his way of teaching was really simple. He taught by example. And my entire life, especially today, like Jackson, or when I'm in the corporate world or just faced with a difficult decision, I always come back to WWJD. That's what would Jimmy do? His character is the foundation of my conscience. He taught me everything that I know. He taught me that I don't need to be able to grow a beard in order to be a man. He taught me to shovel sand, to chop wood, to build fires. He taught me how to skip rocks with the best of them. He taught me that I don't need big muscles to be a strong guy. And he taught me patience, kind of like Bill alluded to. That if I'm always just worrying about what's next, or when we're going to get there, or when is this going to be done with, I can't enjoy the present, because I'm always focused on the future. And he did that really well with one simple saying. So when we're growing up, I'd always be like, Dad, are we there yet? Or hey, how much longer? And he would just sit there and tell me, we're not getting any farther away. And I loved it, because because I've said it my whole life. It was recently, like 48 hours ago when I'm at work, and my sales director, yo, Warner, is your team going to hit quota this month? Yo, Warner, is your team, you're going to get some sales today? And I said, great. Not getting any farther away. So I thank you for that, Dad. He definitely taught me that I don't need drugs or alcohol to have a good time. I never even had a beer with my dad, and that sucked. And sometimes it was like really annoying, but with every passing day of his sobriety, I definitely gained more and more respect for him. And going back to what Jackson said, I can confidently say I'm ready for a drink right now. This will be halfway through, so cheers to Jimmy. Give him this one. All right, I think I got this. He also taught me that I don't need to know like the way. I don't have to have a crystal clear path. I just have to know the outcome. I have to know that I'm going to do something that's going to get done. He taught me that whether I believe I can or believe I can't, that I'm right. My dad was and always will be my role model, my mentor, and my best friend. I've always wanted to be just like my dad, but if you see some of the pictures that you're going to see this evening, you might not believe that. He always let me do me, even when that meant me painting my fingernails black and spiking my hair up, or when I had a long, shaggy hair, complemented with a hemp necklace and wristbands from recent concerts. He always let me be me, and I appreciate him for that. He definitely gave me my passion for music. I played the drums growing up, and one of the only times I can ever remember my dad lying to me was after he volunteered the attic to be our practice space for my middle school band. And he'd come up there while we, I guess it's called playing instruments. But he'd sit back, and when we were done, he would tell us, you're going to be famous one day. Or he made us believe that we're legends in our own mind. And that's the only lie I ever remember him telling me. That's okay. I also remember the only time I ever saw my dad yell at me. And ironically enough, Jackson was there. We were coming home from church on a Sunday morning, and we weren't perfect little angels growing up. And I forget if I was crossing his half of the car, or if he was crossing my half. But you know, we made a little ruckus back there, and he slammed on the brakes, and it scared the crap out of us. And one more time, I'm pulling the car over, and we didn't even know what that meant. But about 30 seconds went by, and I think it was me, but it was like quiet for about 30 seconds, and gave Jackson a little poke, and he pulled the car over, and he told us we had to walk home. So we did. We're dressed in clothes much like we are today, and we bickered the entire walk home. That was the only time I ever saw my dad yell. Let's see, I also remember just kind of being on the Grady White, the first boat that we ever owned. I'd always sit up on the bow, it'd be like windy and sunny, and I'd turn around and I'd see that smile on his face and like not a care in the world in his eyes. And a lot of you guys know it's that same look on his face when he sits back on a deck. He's kind of leaned back in a chair, crossing his legs, smoking a cigar. But I'll never forget that face. I loved it. I remember rowing a canoe across a lake one time in the middle of the night. We were lit by moonlight. My companions were Golden Hawk and my dad Silver Hawk, and we were going to greet the Pamunkey Nation. And that night he delivered one of the more compelling speeches I've ever seen in my life. He led the nation with confidence that night, and I'll never forget it. I remember he'd always let Jackson and I drive the tank. Called it the tank, down on the beach. He'd let us sit in his lap and drive the tank. And then I remember a couple years later, he traded the tank to a guy that called it a Suburban. And I was like, all right, Dad, what would you get out of it? Like, bunch of money. And he was like, no, that guy's gonna paint our walls upstairs. For years, I thought my dad was like the worst businessman. I wouldn't listen to him. I was like, that's such a bad deal, Dad. That was a tank. But he later go on to tell me that that man had a 17-year-old son that didn't have a car, and he wanted him to have a car. And then it kind of all made sense to me. Thought that was great. My dad taught me a hard work ethic. When I was 15, I couldn't get a job, and so he got one for me. And he said, congratulations, you're a shagger. And I was like, Dad, I'm only 15. What a shagger was the guy that picks up the golf balls at a driving range, the guy that picks them up out of the mud where the machine can't get to them. And so naturally, I have to be there before 7 a.m., which is when the golfers start hitting the golf balls at the shagger. But my dad would wake up at 4:15 in the morning and drive me to work. And it was just insane. He taught me that hard work ethic from very, very early on, and definitely led by example there. I'm never going to lose that hard work ethic. I'm always going to just strive to be the best that I can in my life. Certainly not settle for mediocrity. I know I made my parents proud, and I know my mom's proud right now, but you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm going to do incredible things with my life. I'm going to do it in Dad's name and in my hero's honor. I'll give you guys a little piece of advice as you all kind of like look for answers and find your way through this time of uncertainty. Some advice that my mom gave my dad almost 40 years ago. Dad gave my mom the advice 40 years ago. I don't know what's happening up here right now. They were, I'll paint this picture for you. They're walking down train tracks, and the sun was coming up. It's maybe 6 a.m. And they hadn't gone to bed yet, God knows why, but they hadn't gone to sleep yet. And my mom was having a hard time walking. And eventually she got tired and just couldn't walk anymore. And it wasn't because she was too tired to walk, it was because, oh, God knows what. But she finally, she stopped, and my dad went up and he whispered in her ear, all you have to do is put one foot in front of the other. And she told me that not only did it work, the advice worked, but that she thought he was so brilliant. and that he was just miraculous at that moment. So those would be my words of wisdom to you. Take it day by day, put one foot in front of the other. We're very proud of everything we accomplished. And we're going to miss him every day. There's going to be a slideshow in the back where the food is. And there's a guest book right here where the hats are that we'd love for you guys to sign. But before we do that, we'd like to listen to a song with you guys by Neil Young called One of These Days. It's number 6.
One of these days, I'm gonna sit down and write along to all the good friends I know. One of these days, one of these days, one of these days, and it won't be long, won't be long, won't be long, won't be long. And I'm gonna thank that old country fiddler and all those rough boys who played that rock and roll. I never tried to burn any bridges, though I know I let some good things go. One of these days, gonna sit down and write a long letter to all